Just a week ago, he was her boyfriend. Today, he's getting married to another woman. Could anything be more heartbreaking? Our story kicks off at a wedding where a guy named Jong-woo Kim and a lady, Ms. Miran Moon, are tying the knot. The MC announces the groom, Jong-woo, to a round of applause from everyone except one person, our lead character, Yura Hwang. She's tucked away in a corner, donning dark shades and contemplating how she could let Jong-woo, who she now considers a traitor, slip away. The story then rewinds to a week ago when Jong-woo, her then-boyfriend, handed her his wedding invite. It turns out his soon-to-be father-in-law was the top contender for the presidency. This revelation left Yura shaken to the bone. And as if the scene wasn't already heartbreaking enough for Yura, Jong-woo began to criticize her for being naive and oblivious to him ignoring her calls once a month due to photoshoots. Presently, as Yura watches the newlyweds, she feels her anger rising but reminds herself to stay composed. After all, she's here for a reason. She figures Jong-woo invited her to enjoy the feast, so why not treat it as his parting gift? Just as she's tucking in, an usher informs her about the assigned seating. Embarrassed and confused, Yura wonders why she's even at this wedding. Is it to show she's unfazed? Or to make Jong-woo squirm? We learn that years back, when Yura lost her parents in a tragic accident, Jong-woo was her rock, promising to never leave her side. As much as she hates to admit it, Yura feels like the biggest fool. When the usher begins to guide the rightful guests to their seats, Yura gives her name and follows the usher to her spot at the back of the hall. Once seated, she pulls out a compact mirror from her bag, one look, and she's horrified at her appearance. She fumbles for her glasses, but they're missing, she left them behind on her previous seat. At the table she just vacated, a dashing man, Sun Hyun-kang, takes her place, an empty soup bowl in front of him. His buddy teases him about the bowl, and as Sun Hyun reaches for Yura's sunglasses, she swoops in to collect it, apologizes, and rushes back to her seat. Sun Hyun then makes a comment about someone he refers to as the soup lady, feeling a strange sense of familiarity, but shrugs it off, thinking it won't make any difference. Fast forward a month, Yura's sister, who's fondly called Sis, bursts into the room with exciting news. Yura's been called for Time, a new film by esteemed director Yoon Han-yu, featuring heartthrobs Sun Hyun-kang and Chang Haeon-cho. 2 months ago, Yura auditioned for the leading lady role but gave up hope after no response. Now, she's finally breaking free from 7 years of uncertainty. Yura has a colorful acting resume, from coffee commercials and teen dramas to sports drink ads, she's done it all. But starring in a major film like Time? That's very new to her. As Sis rattles off the film schedule and script details, Yura can't help but pepper her with questions. "Are you sure they want me for the shoot, not just a reading?" she asks skeptically. When Sis confirms, Yura wonders if she's ended up with a silent role. With a rush of excitement, Yura grabs Sis, "Am I playing Hiram?" The bubble bursts when Sis reveals she's been cast as Susie. The male lead's disappointment washes over Yura before she plops down on the ground. Apparently, Susie is a tragic character who drowns in despair and eventually takes her own life. Her face only appears in flashbacks. But Yura decides to give this role her all, vowing to captivate the audience with her performance. Sis cheers her on, adding that she can finally return that handkerchief. A flashback to a year ago, Yura was an extra in a movie. The director, not bothering to remember her name, referred to her as Red Ribbon due to her costume. After being scolded by him, Yura hid behind a building and broke down. She felt invisible, even after 6 years in the industry. As she was trying to tidy up her makeup, Sun Hyun-kang, the film's lead, offered her a handkerchief. He insisted that she keep it and, surprisingly, asked her name. Fast forward to the present, Yura's on her way to Busan with Sis, the handkerchief still in her possession. She never got the chance to thank Sun Hyun back then. She doubts he remembers her, but the thought of sharing screen space with him excites her. As Yura steps onto the movie set, she's caught off guard by none other than our traitor ex-boyfriend Jong-woo's presence. The shock is mutual, and they simultaneously blurt out, "What are you doing here?" Yura explains she's part of the film, throwing the question back at him. Before he can answer, someone calls out for him. Jong-woo answers with a grin, then turns to Yura, his eyes sharp. He snidely remarks about her minor role and warns her to keep her name separate from his. As the person calls out again, he saunters off. Just as Sis walks over to inform Yura about Jong-woo, she catches Yura's expression and realizes she already knows. She fills Yura in. Jongwoo is replacing Chang Hyun-cho as the lead. Apparently, an investor pulled out, causing a funding shortfall. However, thanks to Jongwoo's politically powerful wife, he's the new star. Yura can't help but feel a sting of unfairness. Why is Jongwoo the lead while she's just an extra? Sis spots the hurt on Yura's face and suggests they could bail. But Yura declines. To her, a small role earned honorably is better than a lead role snagged through shady means. Sis backs her decision, grabs some drinks for the crew, and tells Yura to start studying the script. Before Sis leaves, Yura apologizes for not being more successful and attractive. But Sis reassures her, "You're the most beautiful person I know." Once alone, Yura mulls over her debt to her sister Jin Kyun, then settles into her car to study the script. Despite Susie being a small part, her influence is big, and Yura is determined to make the most of it. Meanwhile, Sun Hyun, holed up in his hotel room, gets a call from Chang Hyun. He teases Sun Hyun for boycotting the set by locking himself in. Sun Hyun admits he's upset and asks why Chang Hyun isn't fighting back. Chang Hyun shrugs, saying even if they resist, the director, Yun Han, would just ignore them. He advises Sun Hyun to drop the protest and focus on his role, promising they'll get another chance to work together. In the next scene, we learn that Sun Hyun first met Jongwoo at his wedding and never imagined they'd cross paths under such circumstances. Now, Jongwoo's nonchalant greeting and the crew's fawning over him due to his wife's influence leave a sour taste. As Sun Hyun broods over the messed-up situation, Gwang-soo bursts into his room with alarming news. He urgently implores him to help stop the director before he does something drastic. On the frigid set, the director's booming voice cuts through the air. "Cut," he bellows, his tone laced with irritation. The scene, he proclaims, is a disaster. He turns his wrath on Yura, questioning her timid demeanor. "You're playing someone who chose to end her life, not a damsel in distress. Stop looking like you need rescuing." Yura, teeth chattering from the cold, stammers an apology. But the director, Yun Han, isn't having any of it. He gives her a choice: shape up or ship back to Seoul. Desperate, Yura pleads for one more shot. The assistant director steps in, suggesting they all take a breather. Yun Han rubs his temples and reluctantly agrees to a 20-minute break. Yura thanks the assistant director, who shrugs off her gratitude. She reveals that Yura is the third actress to play Susie, and frankly, the crew is tired of auditioning replacements. As Sis arrives to whisk Yura away, all eyes follow her, including Jongwoo's. Sis ushers Yura into a nearby car to warm up, promising to return with hot packs. Alone, Yura berates herself for botching the same scene 15 times. She needs to focus. Just as she's settling in, Jongwoo slides into the car, startling Yura. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Sun Hyun decides to step in after learning from Gwang-soo about the director's relentless push despite the freezing conditions. He heads out, determined to cool down the situation. Jongwoo, inside the car, expresses his surprise at Yura's choice to play such a grim character. He offers her an alternative role, but Yura dismisses him coldly. He tries to play the good guy card, reminding her of their past and how he feels sorry for her. He then asks how she's been able to endure so much, pointing out her 7 years in the industry. For a moment, Yura studies him, then asks if he ever cared about her during their relationship. He bursts into laughter, labeling her question as ridiculous. He reminisces about their time together, likening it to kids playing house. He belittles her, claiming any other guy would have dumped her within a month. He calls her arrogant, poor, and lacking a good background, implying that she should be grateful for the time he spent with her. His words are a harsh reminder of her worth in his eyes. Back on set, Sun Hyun arrives just in time to see Yura in distress. He watches as she crumples to the ground, sobbing. He recognizes her as the actress playing Susie, and calls her name. Yura spins around as she hears her character's name, Susie, and is taken aback to see none other than Sun Hyun standing there. Memories of the wedding where they first met flood back, and he can't help but feel a pang of sympathy seeing her treated poorly in such harsh weather. "Hello, senior," Yura says, introducing herself and apologizing for the late greeting, but Sun Hyun remains silent, noticing her pale complexion and silently blaming director Yun Han for her current state. Yura, on her end, can't shake off the feeling of unease. Why does he remain silent? And why does she always end up showing this vulnerable side to him? Breaking the awkward silence, Sun-hyun lifts her coat and gently places it on her shoulders. Yura stammers out a thank you, which Sun-hyun attributes to the cold. He worries that her shivering and stuttering could affect the film, so he points her toward the director's cabin, suggesting she might want to warm up there. Yura, piecing together that he must have heard about the earlier incident, kindly declines his offer. Sun-hyun, unable to stand by and watch, decides to confront the director. But as he turns to leave, Yura's voice stops him in his tracks. She pleads with him not to go, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she speaks. The gesture sparks a memory in Sun-hyun, a girl, a year ago, and a handkerchief. He leans in closer, about to speak, when Sis barges in, calling out Yura's name. Sun-hyun greets her, causing Sis to halt mid-sentence as she recognizes him. She blushes, returns his greeting, introduces herself as Yura's manager, and quickly ushers Yura away, mentioning that the director is waiting. Once they're out of earshot, Sis starts grilling Yura about her conversation with Sun-hyun. Sun-hyun watches them leave, his mind filled with questions. He remembers Yura's embarrassed look at the wedding, the day he lent her his handkerchief, and realizes this is their third unexpected meeting. He can't help but wonder, why is it that every time they meet, Yura is always in tears? Arriving at the director's location, Yura promptly apologizes for the delay, acknowledging the inconvenience she caused to the entire crew. Director Yun Han, with a hint of sarcasm, retorts that she still had a minute left and might as well have taken her sweet time. Yura quickly apologizes again, internally berating herself for such a rookie mistake. Yun Han brings up the fact that it's been 7 years since her debut. Upon her confirmation, he goes on a tirade about how her experience seems to have given her the audacity to make directors wait. The crew, including Sis, can only look on in silent disbelief. He further adds that if this is her usual behavior, it's no surprise that after 7 years, she's still struggling to make a mark in the industry. This comment stings Yura, but she's unable to defend herself. She reasons that if she can't convincingly portray Suzy, any excuses she makes would seem petty. Yun Han smirks, lighting up a cigarette, and takes a dig at Yura's sense of entitlement because of her long-standing career. However, his cigarette is abruptly snatched away. He turns around in anger, only to find Sun-hyun standing there. Sun-hyun questions Yun Han's misplaced anger, reminding him that he was the one who insisted on replacing Jongwoo with Chang Hyeon. Yun Han retorts that Sun-hyun was the one who turned down the role in the first place, questioning his sudden interest. Sun-hyun fires back, implying that the time wasted could have been used to film some scenes. Frustrated, Yun Han reclaims his cigarette from Sun-hyun, ordering Yura to get ready for the scene. As Yura leaves, Yun Han accuses Sun-hyun of trying to undermine him for his own gain. Sun-hyun coolly responds that if that was his intention, he wouldn't have gone easy on Yun Han, earning him a derogatory comment from the director. Sun-hyun then inquires whether Yura attended an acting school, to which Yun Han expresses his ignorance. He vaguely recalls her auditioning for a different role but can't be certain due to the sheer number of people present during the auditions. Sun-hyun expresses surprise upon learning about Yura's 7-year career, admitting that he hasn't seen her in any movie. Yun Han reveals that Yura has had several supporting roles, but his disbelief is evident. When asked why, he simply tells Sun-hyun to see for himself. Meanwhile, Sis checks on Yura, who wryly comments that she's now fully immersed in Suzy's character as she feels like she's on the brink of despair. Sis comforts her, encouraging her to channel these emotions for the scene. Yura mentally prepares herself, vowing not to falter, especially in front of Jongwoo. She reminds herself of the sacrifices she's made for this role. As soon as the director calls action, she makes her way towards the water. The harsh criticisms from Yun Han and Jongwoo echo in her mind. She steps into the water, memories of naysayers and the tragic news of her parents' demise flooding back. Tears stream down her face as she fully immerses herself in the scene. As Yura performs the scene, the director, crew, and Sun-hyun watch from behind the camera in astonishment. Sun-hyun notes that Yura's expression doesn't reflect someone who's botched several takes, but Yun Han, stubborn as ever, insists they wait and see. Sun-hyun can't help but wonder if Yura is merely putting on a performance. When Yun Han finally yells cut, a wave of relief ripples through the crew, no blunders this time. All the while, Sis watches Yura, speechless, only to realize that she hasn't emerged from the water. Yun Han heaves a sigh of relief, puzzled why Yura had caused him such frustration when she clearly had the talent. Just then, Sun-hyun spots Yura struggling in the water. Without a second thought, he sprints towards her, with Sis hot on his heels, shouting for Yura to stop. Outpacing Sis, Sun-hyun dives into the water as the rest of the crew looks on in confusion. Sun-hyun plunges deep into the water, reaching Yura just in time. He grabs her hand and pulls her to the surface. They quickly lay her on a blanket, and Sun-hyun starts chest compressions as Sis kneels by his side, crying. The crew gathers around, watching anxiously. After administering mouth-to-mouth, Sun-hyun returns to chest compressions until Yura coughs up water. Overwhelmed, Sis hugs Yura tightly, telling her that Sun-hyun saved her life. Yura weakly raises her hand towards him. He takes her hand, suggesting she save her thanks for later. She comments on the saltiness of the water before breaking down in tears. Later, a soaked Sun-hyun arrives back at his hotel room. Gwang-soo, his companion, anxiously asks about his encounter with Yeon-han. Sun-hyun brushes it off as nothing, asking for a change of clothes. Despite Gwang-soo's flurry of worried questions, Sun-hyun remains lost in thought, marveling at how Yura's voice sprung back to life after her near-death experience. He recalls her words and can't help but chuckle, prompting Gwang-soo to ask if he outsmarted Yeon-han. Sun-hyun ignores him, smiling to himself as he thinks about how adorable Yura is. Fresh out of the shower and in clean clothes, Sun-hyun picks up the movie script. This catches Gwang-soo off guard. Sun-hyun mentions he'll be pulling a late-nighter, to which Gwang-soo jokingly laments about missing out on a poker game with other managers downstairs. Sun-hyun playfully tells him to go anyway and teases him about potentially joining his work. Gwang-soo, initially thrilled about the poker game, is briefly thrown off but finally decides to tag along with Sun-hyun to the set. As they step outside the hotel, Gwang-soo spots Soo-ji's manager conversing with Sis. The manager is explaining something about an available room when Sun-hyun interjects, asking if the hotel is fully booked. The abrupt question startles the manager. He explains that Yura has wrapped up for the day and is about to head to her room. He adds that the schedule was extended because Sun-hyun had initially declined his role. Offering an apology to Sis, she reassures him it's all good, given that he saved Yura earlier. Concerned, Sun-hyun inquires if Yura should have been taken to the hospital. Sis assures him that Yura claimed she was fine. Just then, Yura steps outside to ask about her room and is taken aback to see Sun-hyun. Sis informs her they were discussing her situation, while Sun-hyun silently notes how well Yura looks. He asks her how she's doing, and she expresses her gratitude for his earlier rescue. Sun-hyun apologizes for extending her work by a day, but she cheerily reveals she's happy to film one more day. He advises her to go inside to avoid catching a cold. As she thanks him and bows, she suddenly remembers something and asks him to wait. She returns shortly with his handkerchief from a year ago. He playfully reminds her that he had told her not to return it, and she mentions it seemed expensive. Grateful for the returned handkerchief, she thanks him for giving her strength with the gesture, saving her life, and his excellent acting. As she continues pouring out her gratitude, he interrupts her and advises her to rest. Gwang-soo then interjects, mentioning a call from the director, so Sun-hyun bids her goodbye. As they head towards the set, Gwang-soo compliments Sis's youthful looks despite her being 34. Realizing Sun-hyun isn't paying attention, he stops talking. Suddenly, Sun-hyun instructs Gwang-soo to proceed to the set alone and dashes back to the hotel. He knocks on room 205, where Yura is staying, and offers her the key to his room, suggesting she should sleep there instead. Yura stares at Sun-hyun, a look of pure shock on her face. She wonders if she's heard him correctly. Did he just invite her to sleep in his room? When he confirms it, she's taken aback. Jumping to conclusions, she snaps at him, declaring she's not that kind of person. Sun-hyun attempts to clarify, but Yura isn't having it. She shoos him away and dives back into her script. Sun-hyun pauses. He's been told before that he has a knack for leaving out key details when he speaks, causing frequent misunderstandings. He tries once more to explain his intentions. His room will be vacant as he's filming all night. She could use the quiet space to relax with Sis, her manager. The light bulb finally goes off in Yura's head. She comprehends his intention, and her cheeks flush a bright red. Mortified at her earlier outburst, she buries her face in her script as Sun-hyun takes his leave. Fresh from her shower, Sis steps out of the bathroom, feeling rejuvenated. She'd heard voices while she was in the shower and asks Yura about it. Still blushing, Yura inquires if Sun-hyun knows she'll be staying up all night. Sis nods, explaining that some of the crew, including Sun Hyun, will be working overnight. The revelation brings tears to Yura's eyes. She felt left out of the loop. Later, Yura and Sis make their way to room 1701, Sun Hyun's suite. Yura hesitates, questioning the appropriateness of occupying his room, but Sis reassures her. Sun Hyun had extended the offer out of concern, knowing she'd be up all night. It would be impolite to decline such a thoughtful gesture. Sis then leaves Yura at the door, heading off to a poker game with the other managers. Yura enters the room, surprised by its neatness. She settles on the bed, noticing a familiar scent, Sun Hyun's. As she snuggles under the covers, she reflects on her taxing day and Sun Hyun's unexpected kindness. Before long, sleep claims her. Unknown to her, Jongwoo stands in the hallway, his gaze fixed on the door of room 1701. One can only wonder what he's up to. The following day, Yura and Sis stroll onto the set, spotting Sun Hyun engrossed in his script beneath a canopy where drinks are kept. They greet him cheerfully, causing him to look up. He asks Yura if she had a good night's sleep and how she's feeling. She thanks him for his concern, and he hands her and Sis coffee. He then addresses Sis as Jin Kyun, which surprises her, and she asks how he knew her name. He explains that Gwang-soo let it slip, causing them to laugh. Yura then curiously asks where he crashed after last night's shoot. His response that he slept on set, complaining about the cold and his aching back, startles her. He then admits he was joking and that he bunked in his manager's room. This revelation makes Yura think he's got a bit of a mean streak. Just then, Jongwoo saunters over, greeting Sun Hyun casually. He then pretends not to know Yura, asking for her name. She's taken aback but decides to play along, introducing herself. Jongwoo then drops a bombshell. He saw Yura entering Sun Hyun's room the previous night, asking if they pulled an all-nighter. The comment leaves Yura stunned, and Sun Hyun surprised. Sun Hyun retaliates by calling Jongwoo Park Chol, pretending to forget his name. Jongwoo corrects him, mentioning that he knows his wife well and that Sun Hyun attended his wedding. This revelation piques Yura's interest. Sun Hyun then asks Jongwoo about his adventures from the previous day, sarcastically noting that he seems to be the only one unaware of his overnight filming. Jongwoo admits he wrapped up early and didn't hear from Sun Hyun all night, offering an apology that Sun Hyun dismisses. The men exchange a tense stare-off, broken by Gwang-soo's arrival. He chides Sun Hyun for not being ready for the shoot, then greets Jongwoo, empathizing with his early filming schedule. Gwang-soo then subtly reminds Sun Hyun about the day's public shoot, hinting at the presence of reporters on set and the risk of unwanted media attention. Sun Hyun sighs, hands Jongwoo a tissue to wipe off his sweat, and walks off. Sis guides a flustered Yura away from the scene, but Jongwoo stops them, asking why Yura was in Sun Hyun's room. Sis whirls around to confront him, but Yura intervenes. She steps up to Jongwoo, teasing him about his lack of creativity. She playfully sticks a small piece of tissue on his forehead, reminding him of Sun Hyun's advice to wipe his sweat. She teases him further about his ability to memorize scripts and walks off arm in arm with Sis. A furious Jongwoo shouts after them, but they ignore him, leaving him fuming on the set. Later, on the set, Yeonhan gathers Yura and Sun Hyun for a quick briefing. He shares the tweaks he's made to the upcoming scene, no dialogues, just a casual beach walk. But there's a catch. They've got to pretend to be deep in conversation, all while emoting for their character, especially Susie. This scene is pivotal as Susie is covertly deciding to end her life, yet Yura needs to ensure Susie doesn't appear sad. As Yeonhan wraps up his directions, he seems like he wants to say something more to Yura. However, catching Sun Hyun's gaze, he changes his mind and ushers them towards the cameras. As the crew bustles around getting ready, Yura and Sun Hyun prepare themselves. The moment their character names are called, they shed their coats and step into their roles. Sun Hyun casually drapes his arm around a jittery Yura, giving her a comforting smile. She takes a deep breath, resolving not to repeat yesterday's blunders. The director calls action, and they start their walk. Nervously, Yura shares with Sun Hyun her curiosity about what actors chat about during such scenes. He advises her not to overthink it, often, it's just banter about food or random musings. To demonstrate, he asks her about her dinner plans. As they share a laugh and continue their staged conversation, Yeonhan nods approvingly from his director's chair. Suddenly, Sun Hyun shifts the topic to Jongwoo's wedding, catching Yura off guard. She masks her surprise, reminding herself they're still filming. When she queries about his connection with Jongwoo's wife, Miran, his response that their fathers are friends leaves her even more startled. She apologizes for her emotional volatility, to which Sun Hyun reassures her. He commends her emotional range in yesterday's shoot, making her blush. When he asks about her thoughts during the scene, she deflects, reflecting on her debut years ago and berating herself for her perceived stupidity. Sun Hyun empathizes, sharing his own struggles during his early acting days. Their conversation takes a serious turn as Sun Hyun recounts a dreadful day from his past. He was an extra for a commercial shoot under a ruthless director, Lee Jin-sung. Yura recognizes the name, he's a big shot in the industry. He confesses he almost punched the director that day but was saved by the lead actor who asked him his name, a rare occurrence during those struggling days. Yura is moved by his story, her mind racing with thoughts of her own mundane life. She knows Sun Hyun's affectionate gaze is just part of the act, but she yearns for it to be real. She clings to the moment, not ready to let go of his hand. Tears well up in her eyes as she imagines herself as the lead character, Hiram. In response, Sun Hyun pulls her into a comforting hug, whispering words of encouragement, taking her aback. She shares with him how his kindness during the shoot left an indelible mark on her. He responds warmly, encouraging her to succeed in her career, adding that it'd be fantastic if their paths crossed again as equals. They share a moment of silence, their gazes locked. Breaking the silence, he gently cups her face, asking if she's ever been kissed. Flustered, she stammers out a confession, she's never been kissed. As he leans in, she instinctively closes her eyes, her heart pounding in anticipation. But instead of the expected kiss, she feels a soft peck on her forehead. He then tells her he's looking forward to returning to Seoul and asks her not to cry too much. Fast forward a few hours, and we find Yura, now back in her own clothes, lost in thought about the day's events. Sis busily loads their belongings into the car for the journey back to Seoul. She glances at the newsstand, commenting on the reporters likely there for the main cast. Yura, staring at the director's chair, asks Sis when she'll get a chance to sit in one. Sis questions if she's envious, to which Yura reflects on her seemingly endless treadmill of striving and failing. Sis wraps her in a comforting hug, encouraging her to keep pushing, to stay on the treadmill. Yura asks if Sis isn't tired, to which she replies with a determined no. She insists they hydrate and gear up for a marathon, aiming for nothing less than first place after 7 years of training. Sis's mood sours when she spots Jongwoo taking a seat. Calling him a cheapskate, she urges Yura to leave before the sight of him spoils her mood. As they prepare to depart, Yura notices Sun Hyun and the actress playing Hiram join Jongwoo. But the Sun Hyun she sees now seems distant, unlike the person she'd spent time with earlier. She muses on his celebrity status, his striking physique, flawless looks, and immense acting talent that have won him countless fans across Asia. She feels a pang of sadness, accepting the likelihood that their lives may never intersect again. The memory of his kiss makes her cheeks flush, and she quickly slaps herself back to reality at Sis's call. As she heads towards the car, she contemplates whether her feelings of regret are related to her lingering attachment to Susie. As she settles into the car, she resolves to keep those emotions in check, focusing on the road ahead. Post-interview, Sun Hyun's eyes scan the room for Yura. Not spotting her, he wonders if she's already made her way back to Seoul. With a sigh, he retreats to his room, with Gwang-soo promising to wake him by 9 a.m. the following day. As he steps into his room, Sun Hyun is hit by the stark cleanliness, it's almost too pristine. Undressing, he heads for a shower, his mind consumed with thoughts of Yura. A few filming days later, an unexpected accident occurs on set. In a scene, another actor accidentally hits Sun Hyun with a plank, drawing blood from his shoulder. The actor quickly apologizes, explaining that he just followed the rehearsed plan. Sun Hyun waves off the apology, blaming his own lack of focus. At the sight of blood, Gwang-soo rushes over, urging Yeon-han to halt the shoot and get Sun Hyun medical attention. En route to the hospital, Gwang-soo teases Sun Hyun, asking if his thoughts are still in Seoul. Sun Hyun can't help but smile at this, earning a stern look from Gwang-soo. He points out that Sun Hyun has been acting odd lately, forgetting lines, appearing fatigued, suffering insomnia, even getting hit during a well-practiced fight scene. Unbothered, Sun Hyun diverts the conversation, noting they've reached the hospital. As Sang-hyun strides towards the hospital entrance, Kwang-soo calls after him, accusing him of using his injury to avoid the conversation and even suggesting that he might be faking the blood. Kwang-soo shares his theory that Sang-hyun's life has been spiraling since Yura left Busan, seeking affirmation. Sang-hyun pauses, turning to look at Kwang-soo. He tells him that he's just shown his hand, leaving Kwang-soo confused. When Kwang-soo presses for an explanation, Sang-hyun deflects, questioning why Kwang-soo keeps bringing up Jin-kyun, aka Sis. Caught off guard, Kwang-soo stammers out a denial, insisting that their shared role as managers and poker buddies is the only connection. But Sang-hyun isn't listening, his thoughts have already drifted back to Yura. In the next scene, the doctor gives Sang-hyun the all-clear, assuring him that the wound isn't too deep and won't leave a scar. He does, however, advise him to take it easy for a couple of days. This causes Sang-hyun to wonder if Yeon-han will cut him some slack. As they relay the doctor's words to Yeon-han back on set, he surprises Sang-hyun by granting him a 3-day break. Sang-hyun can't help but wonder if this unexpected kindness is somehow linked to Yura's recent accident. Back in his room, Sang-hyun tries to rest while Kwang-soo busily scribbles away in his journal, making odd little noises. Curious, Sang-hyun asks him what he's up to. Kwang-soo excitedly explains that he's rearranging the schedule to squeeze in a shoot for another movie, Men, the following day. Sang-hyun groans, half-joking that he needs a new manager who'll actually let him rest. Taking the hint, Kwang-soo promises to give him a break and heads out to grab some beers. Upon his return, Kwang-soo cracks open a beer and starts channel surfing, disrupting Sang-hyun's attempt to rest. Annoyed, Sang-hyun asks why he's hanging around, and Kwang-soo replies that the other managers are still on set. Sang-hyun reminds him that he was supposed to be resting, prompting Kwang-soo to point at a chair and invite him to sit down and chat. Sang-hyun takes the bait and sits down, suggesting that Kwang-soo might have a thing for Sis, referring to her as Jin-kyun. Kwang-soo blushes, denying any romantic feelings but admitting that he finds her passion for her work incredibly attractive. Sang-hyun advises him to tell her that over the phone, but Kwang-soo insists he'd rather do it in person, despite not knowing what to say. The conversation takes another turn when Kwang-soo brings up Yura. Sang-hyun attempts to deflect, but Kwang-soo presses on, even seeming excited by the topic. When Sang-hyun asks why, Kwang-soo assures him that he's not trying to interfere, but as an adult, he should be careful about showing his feelings too openly. If the public finds out, it could impact both their careers. Sang-hyun blushes, accusing Kwang-soo of overstepping, but Kwang-soo remains unfazed, reminding him to tread carefully and then playfully asking if Jin-kyun is really that cute. The following day in Seoul, Yura dozes off in the backseat of Sis's car. A sudden jolt wakes her up, her head bumping against the window. Sis remarks sympathetically about her long days, working from dawn till dusk. Yura ponders why she's feeling so out of sorts on such a beautiful day. Sis wonders if it's due to her recent fall into the water, suggesting they swing by a hospital. Yura dismisses this, attributing her odd mood swings to the filming schedule for time. She muses aloud about whether Sang-hyun is doing all right with his filming. Sis then spots a familiar cafe and suggests they stop for coffee. The cafe is quiet, being a regular weekday. As Sis heads over to place their order, Yura settles down with her phone, engrossed in a challenging game. When a coffee cup appears before her, she assumes it's Sis. Without looking up, she hands over her phone, asking for help with the game. Imagine her surprise when she looks up to find Sang-hyun holding her phone, already engrossed in the game. Yura blinks at him, for a moment thinking she's in some sort of dream. She'd assumed he was still filming in Busan. He greets her casually, and when she responds, he teases her about her gaming skills. As she starts explaining the game, she stops herself mid-sentence to ask why he's there. He shrugs, eyes still glued to the game, and tells her that he has something to ask. She prompts him to go ahead with his question, and he confesses that he can't stop thinking about her and missing her. He then asks if she feels the same way. Yura is taken aback as she replays his words in her mind. He quickly stands up, saying that he doesn't have much time as he's still in the middle of filming. He suggests she give him her answer over the phone and leaves the cafe. Confused, Yura picks up her phone, only to find that he's saved his number in it. Sis arrives just then, gushing about how cool Sang-hyun is. She even shows Yura the goosebumps on her arm. When she realizes Yura isn't really listening, she waves her hand in front of her face to get her attention. Once Yura looks at her, Sis jokingly asks if she can quit being a manager to become an actress. Yura, still in shock, asks Sis what just happened. Sis explains that she exchanged numbers with Gwang-soo back in Busan, and he's been in touch a few times since. However, the previous day, Gwang-soo contacted her out of the blue to say that Sung-hyun had injured himself while filming because he was distracted by thoughts of Yura. This revelation stuns Yura. Sis elaborates that Sung-hyun's constant thoughts about Yura were affecting his focus, and there could have been a serious accident if things continued that way. Therefore, they decided it was best for Sung-hyun to meet her. Yura blushes, a small smile playing on her lips as she asks Sis to clarify what she means by Sung-hyun being unable to concentrate because he was thinking about her. Sis reminds her of Sung-hyun's confession earlier. She then apologizes for not letting Yura know in advance about Sung-hyun's visit. She explains that he was in Seoul for a brief photoshoot and wasn't sure if he'd have time to meet. When Yura asks if Sis is implying that Sung-hyun got injured because he was thinking about her, and Sis confirms it, Yura blushes even more. She then asks Sis for advice on what to do next. Sis suggests she call Sung-hyun right away and tell him that she misses him too, adding that she wouldn't have arranged the meeting if Yura was against it. Yura reflects on her interactions with Sung-hyun. They were exciting and fun, and he seemed like a wonderful and perfect person. But then again, so did Jongwoo at the start. To Yura, there was no one as caring, kind, and affectionate as Jongwoo. While she recognizes that Sung-hyun may be different, she isn't quite ready to confront or confirm these feelings yet. That night, Sis is all animated about some auditions she stumbled upon online. Yura, however, is in her own world, staring blankly at her phone. Sis watches as Yura's expression shifts from disinterest to frustration, then resignation. Snatching the phone from Yura, Sis starts typing, insisting that Yura should just bite the bullet and text Sung-hyun. But Yura quickly reclaims her phone. Sis reminds Yura that Sung-hyun had asked her to keep in touch. If she's not interested, she should just forget him. Yura admits she's worried, and Sis, understanding her fears, reassures her that Sung-hyun is genuinely a good guy, caring, emotional, and kind-hearted. Yura counters by saying that Jongwoo was also like that initially, projecting an image of kindness unmatched by anyone else. She asks Sis if she didn't see through his act. Sis denies it, joking that if Jongwoo could act that well, he'd be winning awards at Ken by now. She advises Yura that there's no rush to start dating. She should just stay in touch with Sung-hyun, take it slow, and get to know him better. When Yura's mood doesn't lift, Sis suggests they have a soju session. She believes a little liquid courage might just prompt Yura to call Sung-hyun. Yura rejects the idea, especially when Sis promises to intervene if she starts talking nonsense while drunk. But eventually, she caves, and the two of them drown their evening in soju until Sis drifts off to sleep, leaving Yura alone. She tries to rouse Sis, but to no avail. Giving up, she settles down next to her sleeping sister. Glancing at her phone, she notes the time 1:42 a.m. She didn't contact Sung-hyun, but she knows she has to say something so he won't keep waiting for her. But is it too late to call? Maybe a text message would be better? For the next hour, she tosses and turns, agonizing over what to do until finally, at 3 a.m., she decides to send a message. She figures he'll see it first thing in the morning. After sending a simple text, she switches off the light, planning to deal with whatever comes next in the morning. Just as she's about to drift off, her phone rings. Startled, she picks it up. The caller ID reads Sung-hyun. Yura gazes at her buzzing phone, uncertain. But then, she chuckles, shakes off the nerves, and picks up. The line is silent at first, and just as she's about to speak, Sung-hyun's voice fills her ear, asking if she'd had a drink. She's taken aback, questioning how he could possibly know that. He responds by expressing confusion over her text message. She insists that she was careful while typing it out and subtly shifts gears, asking if she's interrupted his sleep. He dismisses her concern, mentioning he hadn't gotten around to sleeping yet, and inquires if she's outside somewhere. She clarifies that she's home, indulging in a bit of solo drinking. He then asks about her plans for the following day. When she admits she has none, he suggests they meet up so she can clarify her cryptic message. This leaves her a bit stunned, but before she can protest, he tells her he'll send the details and abruptly ends the call, leaving her in a state of bewilderment. The next afternoon, we find Yura at the same cafe where she'd met Sung-hyun the day before, watching a gentle snowfall through the window. The weather forecast had predicted snow in Seoul and a chilly day ahead. After a restless night following Sun Hyun's call, Yura wakes up to a text from him, setting their meeting for 1:30 p.m. at the cafe. In her rush to not be late, she ends up arriving half an hour early. As she waits, her phone rings. It's Sis. Yura informs her that she's at the cafe, having decided to head out early due to the snow, and inquires about Sis's location. Sis mentions that she's in Myeongdong, which strikes Yura as odd, especially considering how well-dressed Sis was. Yura teases her, asking if she's meeting someone special or has a boyfriend. Sis laughs it off, arguing that she hardly has time for men since she's always with Yura, but Yura isn't entirely convinced, picking up on a hint of panic in Sis's voice. Just then, a man waves at Sis, and she quickly tells Yura to head home soon before hanging up. Yura can't shake the feeling that Sis has been acting strangely lately, especially after giving Gwangsu her number back in Busan. She shrugs it off as nothing serious and decides to freshen up a bit. As she's applying lipstick using her phone camera as a mirror, she spots Sun Hyun standing behind her through the screen. He greets her casually, leaving her startled. He teases her about being early, causing her to blush and internally berate herself for always acting odd around him. He takes a seat across from her, apologizing for his tardiness. She quickly assures him that he's not late, all the while observing how ordinary he seems for a celebrity. She initiates small talk, asking about his journey to the cafe. His counter-question, asking if she's ever taken a daytime taxi, leaves her puzzled. He explains that he finds taxi rides nauseating, hence his question. She wonders if he took a taxi to the cafe, and he confirms it, adding that it's more convenient for personal outings. They fall into an awkward silence, broken only when Yura notices him staring at her. He finally addresses the elephant in the room, her cryptic message. He hands her his phone, admitting that despite multiple readings, he still couldn't decipher it. She takes a look at her sent message and gasps, shocked at what she had written. In the text, Yura had written a rambling apology for hitting up his line in the wee hours. She'd confessed how much it meant to her that he cared, but admitted she still felt out of place around him. She'd also mentioned an old wound that was still tender and asked him to just be the friendly senior who always looked out for her. Staring at the message, she couldn't believe her own words. She always prided herself on being a sober drunk. Handing back his phone with an apology, she found herself at a loss for words when he asked her to explain. Yura finds herself tongue-tied, blushing as an idea strikes her. Sun Hyun, watching her stumble over words, reassures her that she doesn't need to spill all the beans. She just needs to answer one question: does she miss him and think of him often? Her cheeks flush even more at his question. Internally, she confesses that he's on her mind daily, feeling like a gentle breeze wrapping around her heart. The thought of voicing these feelings out loud fills her with a mix of fear and curiosity about his reaction. Earlier that morning, Sun Hyun had a chat with Gwangsu, who questioned whether Yura would reciprocate his feelings. Sun Hyun admitted he hadn't really pondered it. Gwangsu then asked if he'd ever considered being turned down by Yura. To this, Sun Hyun responded with a definitive no. Gwangsu reminded him that not everyone would necessarily be swayed by his charm, but suggested Yura might just be different. As Yura continues to mull over her response, Sun Hyun's phone rings. She quickly tells him to take the call. He answers with a gruff no, visibly annoyed when the caller saunters into the cafe looking stylish. Sun Hyun grumbles about the man showing up unannounced, to which the man jovially quips about Sun Hyun's phone battery possibly being dead. The man then slides into the seat next to Sun Hyun, catching Yura's attention. He introduces himself as Jang Min-seon, the director behind countless hit music videos. Yura is pleasantly surprised by his friendly demeanor as they shake hands. She remembers his fame as a model and his successful transition into directing popular music videos. While Yura and Min-seon are engrossed in light-hearted small talk, Sun Hyun buries his face in his hands. When she finally settles back into her seat, she asks Sun Hyun about Min-seon's presence. Before Sun Hyun can answer, Min-seon butts in, asking Yura if she's ever dreamt of fame. Her eyes light up as she enthusiastically responds with a yes. We learn that last night, Min-seon and Sun Hyun were kicking it back in their hotel room when all hell broke loose. Min-seon was having a full-blown meltdown over some folks who turned out to be total duds in a music video, after nailing it at the initial meeting. Sun Hyun, trying to concentrate on his script, could only ask who the video was for, to which Min-seon replied, some idol. Sun Hyun sighed, sympathizing with Min-seon's casting woes. But Min-seon wasn't done venting. He launched into a passionate explanation about this movie he was working on. Picture this, a woman nursing deep love wounds, scared to dive back into the love pool even when a new love comes knocking. She's drawn to him, but her fear of getting hurt again keeps holding her back. It's an emotional roller coaster, to say the least. As Min Se-young ranted about no actor being able to capture the depth of these emotions, Sun Hyun had a lightbulb moment. He thought of Yura, who'd played a similar role as Susie in the movie Time. He suggested Yura to Min Se-young, who promptly Googled her. But then, he found an elderly culinary researcher named Yura instead. Sun Hyun, slightly irritated, snatched Min Se-young's phone to show him the right Yura. Min Se-young, intrigued, asked how Sun Hyun knew Yura, and Sun Hyun casually mentioned they'd shot a movie together and had also met at a wedding. He described her as the cool chick who'd slurped down soup and nabbed sunglasses off the table. Min Se-young remembered her then, and cheekily asked if there was some chemistry between them. Sun Hyun admitted there was nothing yet, but he wouldn't mind if there were. Min Se-young was all for it, cheering Sun Hyun on to go after Yura. Later in the wee hours, a phone buzzed loudly, pulling Min Se-young out of his slumber. It was a message for Sun Hyun. When Sun Hyun didn't budge, Min Se-young teased him, suggesting it might be from Yura. That got Sun Hyun's attention real quick. Sun Hyun read the message, completely puzzled. He decided to call her while Min Se-young kept prodding him. As the phone rang, he wondered if Yura had dozed off after sending the message. She picked up eventually, and as they chatted, Min Se-young teased and laughed at him, earning himself a playful kick from Sun Hyun. After the call, Min Se-young suggested they both meet Yura. Despite Sun Hyun's refusal, Min Se-young was already planning his outfit, ignoring Sun Hyun's protests. Fast forward to the present, Min Se-young is filling Yura in on the role. He mentions that Sun Hyun has a knack for spotting talent, and that piqued his interest in her. He throws out an invitation for her to audition, which she's game for. He asks when she can do it, and adds that he needs someone ASAP. Sun Hyun jumps in, suggesting she should audition right away at Min Se-young's studio. Min Se-young is on board with this plan and tells her to tag along to his place. Both he and Sun Hyun get up to leave, leaving Yura feeling like she's been bulldozed. She tries to backpedal on the immediate audition, but then considers this might be a golden opportunity, so she agrees to plunge in. Min Se-young tells her he'll text her his studio address so she can follow them there separately, wouldn't want to cause a scene if they're seen together. As they head out, Yura reflects on her 7 years in the acting business. She never really thought about what being a celeb would be like. She contemplates telling her sister about the audition but decides against it, knowing her sis would drop everything to support her. Suddenly, she hears screaming outside, and she peers out the window to see Sun Hyun and Min Se-young swarmed by fans, snapping photos and gushing over them. This sight makes her breathe a sigh of relief. It was a good call not going with them. On the drive to Min Se-young's studio, Min Se-young probes Sun Hyun about his chat with Yura before he showed up at the cafe. Sun Hyun admits he was in the middle of something important. Meanwhile, he's left wondering if Yura feels the same about him. Her hesitation to answer his question earlier has him puzzled. Fast forward a bit, and Yura has made it to the studio. Min Se-young hands her the script, apologizing for the lack of prep time. He asks if she'd like to check out scene 10, which is his focal point. As she reads through it, her face drops. Noticing this, he asks her about it, and she replies that she's in love with the screenplay. In her head, she's thinking how she doesn't even need to fabricate emotions for this character, their situations are uncannily similar. She approaches Sun Hyun and asks if he's sticking around for her audition. He checks his watch and says he will if it doesn't drag on too long, he's got to be back on set soon. She assures him she'll do her best not to dawdle. She starts to say something else, but changes her mind, ending with a request for him to take a good look. Yura starts her performance, pouring her heart out into every line, every gesture. She's thinking about Sun Hyun and how her feelings for him have intertwined with her performance. Sun Hyun watches her from the sidelines, his gaze never leaving her. Min Se-young, on the other hand, seems genuinely impressed. Fast forward to Yura getting home, she spills the beans to Sis about her audition. Sis, who has been feeling under the weather, is taken aback. She pulls Yura into a hug and then springs up, ready to celebrate with champagne and cake. But her excitement is short-lived as she collapses back onto the bed. Yura teases her, asking how someone who hardly ever gets sick caught a cold. Sis grumbles something about Gwang-soo dragging her to a store but clamps her mouth shut when she realizes she's overshared. Too late, though. Yura heard her and can't help but grin as she asks if there's something going on between Sis and Gwang-soo. Caught off guard, Sis admits they've decided to explore their relationship further. Yura gives her a skeptical look, but Sis quickly deflects by asking about Sun-hyun. Yura dodges the question, telling Sis to take her medicine before walking away. Sis is left wondering what could have transpired between Yura and Sun-hyun. As Yura heads out to fetch some medicine for Sis, she finds herself staring at her phone, wondering why Sun-hyun hasn't reached out yet. By the time she wrapped up her audition, he had already left, not giving her a chance to talk to him. Just as she's lost in thoughts of him, her phone rings. It's Sun-hyun. Surprised, she picks up the call. Sun-hyun, still on set, checks on her, asking if she got home okay. He apologizes for not speaking to her post-audition and compliments her performance. He then cautiously broaches the topic of the text, saying he's not sure if he understood it correctly. But whatever the case, he assures her he's willing to wait and move at her pace. Fast forward to filming day at Minseong's studio. Minseong introduces Yura to the crew as their precious gem, earning her a round of applause that catches her off guard. She's never been greeted so warmly on set before. But the surprises don't stop there. She's led to her very own dressing room, complete with her name embellished on the door. This sight also stuns Sis. Yura, ever the keepsake collector, asks Sis if she can take the name sign home as a memento. Sis agrees, even suggesting they frame it. To top it all off, Yura's given her own glam squad. This is new territory for her, and she feels like she's living a dream. For 7 years, she's been used to fending for herself on set, munching on packed lunches, changing costumes behind a makeshift curtain Sis would hold up, and waiting in stuffy cars. But today, she has her own sanctuary, a team of beauty experts at her disposal, and a catered lunch waiting for her. Once she's all dolled up, Sis whips out her phone to snap some pictures of Yura, who feels slightly self-conscious in her vibrant outfit. Sis is all giddy, thanking one of the stylists for making Yura look stunning. When her phone rings, she excuses herself to take the call. Yura knows it's Gwang-soo on the other end. As she's left alone, a text from Sun-hyun pops up on her phone. He tells her he pulled an all-nighter and encourages her not to be nervous about her first day on set. She smiles, texting back that she'll give it her best shot, and urges him to rest. She's reminded of their chat 2 weeks ago when he confessed his feelings, apologizing for being too forward, and promising to wait for her. Since then, he's kept his distance, opting to text instead of calling, a gesture she's grateful for, even though she finds herself missing him, his voice, his face, his warm touch, his scent. Sis then startles her, sneaking up from behind and asking if she's chatting with Sun-hyun. Yura jumps, blurting out that she's just wishing him luck with his filming. Sis then brings up Jongwoo, mentioning how the filming of Time keeps getting postponed because of him. She then teases Yura about her obvious feelings for Sun-hyun, asking when she plans to date him. Yura thinks back on all the women who've shown interest in Sun-hyun, actress Song Jin-ah who wanted to work with him, singer Lena who had a crush on him, and model Lena who was keen on meeting him. They're all potential rivals, and Yura can't help but wonder how she'll hold her own, given her tepid approach so far. Meanwhile, in Busan, Jongwoo is standing in front of a mirror, fussing over a tiny scar on his face. The film he's working on has a ton of action scenes, and he's not too thrilled about the physical toll it's taking on him. His manager tries to reassure him that the scar is barely noticeable, but Jongwoo is not having it. He accuses his manager of being indifferent to his celebrity status and even goes as far as to suggest that Sun-hyun intentionally injured him. The manager dismisses this, attributing the accident to Jongwoo's attempt to dodge a move. Just then, his wife Miran rings him up. She immediately launches into a flurry of questions about his well-being, clearly concerned about his face. She also informs him that they have a friend coming over next week, so he needs to be in Seoul. Everyone misses him, she adds. He clenches his fist, his wedding ring glinting under the light, and agrees to head back to Seoul. After hanging up, he lets out a string of curses. Back at Minseong's studio, Yura is sprawled out on the couch in her dressing room, completely worn out from a long day of filming. Sis is seated next to her, trying to keep her spirits up. It's 10:15 p.m., a solid 17 hours since they left home that morning. Despite the exhaustion, Yura admits that this experience, doing makeup touch-ups, costume changes, and all the other things she used to envy, is harder than she anticipated. Sis reminds her that she has an interview with the NYX director and an entertainment news segment in 30 minutes. Until then, she can catch some ZZZs. Just as Yura is about to doze off, a crew member pops her head in, apologizing for disturbing her rest. Yura assures her that she's not the one doing all the hard work, the crew is. The woman seems hesitant, prompting Yura and Sis to encourage her to speak her mind. We can only wonder what that's about. Meanwhile, in his hotel room in Busan, Sung-kyun is engrossed in his script when Gwang-soo calls him over to the living room. Yura is on TV, he announces. As they watch Yura talk about her filming experience, Gwang-soo observes that she looks a bit nervous. The interviewer teases Min-seon for being unusually kind to Yura despite his reputation for being strict. Min-seon praises Yura, saying he fell in love with her acting the moment he saw her audition. The interviewer misunderstands this, leading to a round of laughter. Sung-hyun watches this unfold, finding Yura's laughter endearing. Gwang-soo points out that despite waiting for so long, Yura hasn't called him yet. Sung-hyun replies that she texted him, but Gwang-soo insists that texts and calls are not the same. He goes on to say it's unlike Sung-hyun to fall for someone like Yura, to which Sung-hyun admits that she has changed his ideal type. Gwang-soo is taken aback by this revelation. Sung-hyun then asks if Gwang-soo sent Yura a ticket for Sunday's premiere, which he confirms. Gwang-soo also mentions that he'd like to tell Sis something. He refers to that story first on the day of the premiere if that's okay with Sung-hyun. Sung-hyun gives him the green light, assuring him he'll proceed regardless of how things pan out between him and Yura. The morning sun shines bright as Sis and Yura hit the road. Yura's decided to kickstart her fitness journey, and they're heading to a gym. Which gym are we going to? Yura asks, curiosity piqued. The one in Gangnam, Sis replies nonchalantly. It's a popular spot among celebs, she explains. Yura rolls her eyes, remarking that it's such a show-off. But Sis brushes off her protest, arguing that it's more of an investment. She reminds Yura that once Min-sung's shoot is released, Yura will be thrust into the spotlight. Yura shrugs, suggesting they worry about that when the time comes. For now, she's more concerned about her gym bills than hobnobbing with celebs at a high-end gym. Just then, Sis announces they've arrived and nudges Yura to get out of the car. Inside the gym, Yura swaps her casual clothes for a baggy jersey. It makes her feel a tad self-conscious, but Sis cheers her on enthusiastically. Yura pulls Sis into a hug, begging her to lower her voice or else people think she's there to rub elbows with the rich and famous. Sis then takes her leave, promising to wait at a nearby cafe until Yura wraps up her workout. When Yura asks why Sis isn't joining her, Sis jokes about the gym's hefty registration fee and heads out. Left alone, Yura pulls up a YouTube workout video and starts following along. It's tougher than she thought, and she struggles to keep up. Just as she's about to throw in the towel, she overhears a conversation that grabs her attention. It's Yoon Seo, the actress whose career skyrocketed after her drama became a hit last year, and Chang Hyun, the actor whom Jong-woo replaced in the movie Time. Yura had heard rumors about them dating, and now she's convinced they're true. Lee Seo seems disgruntled about Yoon Han replacing Chang Hyun with Jong-woo. Their conversation then shifts to the Sunday premiere, reminding Yura that she still hasn't picked out an outfit. Lee Seo also mentions setting up a meeting between Sung-hyun and Jin-ah, her best friend who's been pestering her for an introduction. Chang Hyun initially resists but eventually agrees, reasoning that it's been a while since Sung-hyun dated someone. Yura is taken aback. She recalls Sis warning her about losing Sung-hyun due to her hesitation. She figures if Sung-hyun falls for Jin-ah, she has no right to interfere since they're not officially dating. She accidentally blurts this thought out loud, startling Lee Seo and Chang Hyun. Lee Seo denies being in a relationship with Chang Hyun and accuses Yura of being a journalist. Yura stammers, trying to think on her feet. She finally tells them she's a huge fan and asks for their autographs. Later, in the car, Yura shows Sis the autographs, blushing from embarrassment. She begs Sis to switch her to another gym. Meanwhile, a text from Sung-hyun pops up on her phone. He's reminding her to dress warmly. Yura wonders how Sung-hyun can be so patient and warm despite her lack of response. She realizes it's high time she gave him an answer. The day of the premiere has arrived. Sis is already lacing up her shoes, shouting for Yura to hurry up. When Yura finally emerges from her room, she's wearing a simple dress adorned with a bright yellow sweater. "Look at you, bringing spring along with you," Sis teases, playfully dubbing her number one. As they head out, Yura can't help but think about how tonight might be the night she finally tells Sun Hyun how she feels. They haven't seen each other in what feels like forever, and the anticipation is making her jittery. The sight of the bustling crowd at the premiere venue does little to calm her nerves. She looks around, wondering if everyone and their mother were invited to this thing. Just then, Sis's phone rings. It's Gwang-soo. Yura raises an eyebrow. When did those two get so chummy? Sis quickly wraps up the call and announces that she's heading to the 9th floor, leaving Yura to navigate the premiere alone. Yura watches as celebrity strike poses against the photo wall. Chang Hyun and Lee Seo are there too, looking every bit the power couple. She hopes to be in their shoes someday. Then Jin-ah makes her entrance, dazzling in a silver mini dress and white blazers. The crowd goes wild. Yura can't help but admire Jin-ah. She's beautiful, successful, and talented. From what she overheard at the gym, Jin-ah and Sun Hyun are set to meet tonight. A pang of jealousy hits her. She can't just stand by and let them fall for each other. She needs to act. As the premiere kicks off, the cast of Red Forest is called on stage. Sun Hyun is among them. Yura watches him give his speech, remembering how he confessed his feelings to her not too long ago. She hopes she's not too late to reciprocate. Once the cast clears the stage, the lights dim and the movie begins. Yura, eager to watch, quickly switches her phone to vibrate. As she does so, a text from Sun Hyun pops up. He's asking where she is. She glances around and texts back, 6th row on the right. As she hits send, she sees him turn around. Her heart feels like it's about to burst out of her chest. His reply comes in, "Meet me outside in 20 minutes. Gwang-soo will be waiting for you." She gulps, her mind racing as she wonders what her next move should be. Yura slips out of the theater and finds herself outside with Sis and Gwang-soo. They jump into the elevator, where Gwang-soo confesses he was so excited to see Yura that he forgot to eat. Sis teases him, reminding him that he just ate, leaving Yura chuckling at their natural banter. They step out into a hallway, and Gwang-soo points her toward the last door before bidding her goodbye with Sis. Yura tries to protest, not too keen on being left alone with Sun Hyun, but they're already gone. She's left standing in front of Sun Hyun's dressing room, knowing she has some things to clear up. Gathering her courage, she announces herself and gently pushes the door open. Sun Hyun's smile greets her, causing her heart to flutter. He beckons her in, and they sink into a silence that's broken only by his remark about the awkward vibe. He plops down on a couch and pats the seat next to him, inviting her to join. After a moment's hesitation, she sits down, admitting she wanted to catch the movie but promises to go another time with Sis. Sun Hyun points to a monitor that's live streaming the ongoing movie inside the theater. Her eyes flicker to the screen, then back to him. He asks why she avoids his gaze and if seeing him after so long feels strange. She admits it does feel a bit odd, leading him to ask if he seems more manly now. Her cheeks heat up as she thinks about how undeniably masculine he looks. She wonders if this is the right time to confess her feelings. She takes a deep breath, ready to spill her heart out, only to be interrupted by Sun Hyun's ringing phone. The interruption brings her relief. Sun Hyun answers the call. It's Chang Hyun. Yura's mind races, wondering if he's calling about Jin-ah. The call ends, leaving her curious about whether Sun Hyun accepted Chang Hyun's offer. Sun Hyun then asks about her plans after the premiere. She shrugs, saying she has nothing planned, and poses the same question to him. He mentions a press conference he needs to attend, and then suggests they go somewhere together afterward. He adds that Chang Hyun wants to introduce him to a girl and proposes they meet her together. The suggestion leaves Yura shocked. Yura looks at him, puzzled. "You want me to what?" she asks. He grins, explaining that he wants her by his side to make them green with envy. She bursts out laughing, thinking he's pulling her leg. But when he insists he's serious and asks if she'll leave him to go it alone, she sobers up. She can't help but picture him with Jin-ah, who would undoubtedly look stunning next to him. As the thought crosses her mind, Sun Hyun waits expectantly for her response. When none comes, he sighs, saying he's been upfront about meeting a woman tonight, but it seems like she doesn't plan on tagging along. He stands up and heads towards the door, apologizing for keeping her away from the premiere for so long. Yura watches him, a lump forming in her throat. Just as he reaches for the doorknob, she bolts up and grabs his jacket, mumbling that she hopes he won't go on the date. He turns around, asking why. After a moment of hesitation, she blurts out, "Because you have me." His smile spreads slowly, and then he's hugging her tight, his heartbeat thudding against her. He thanks her for stopping him. And she hugs him back, realizing that beneath his calm exterior, he's just as nervous as she is. It's a really cute romantic moment. Later, Yura spills the details to Sis, who lets out a whoop of excitement, but Yura shushes her, blushing as people in the restaurant turn to look at them. Sis apologizes for her outburst, and Yura thanks her for being there for her while she waited for Sun-hyun. She then asks about Gwang-soo, to which Sis replies that he had to accompany Sun-hyun. Yura remembers how Sun-hyun had hugged her in his dressing room before saying he'd return to the theater. He had asked if she was going back too, and she had told him she'd wait at a cafe. Just as he was about to leave, he had paused and admitted that he didn't want to go. It had filled her with joy to know he felt the same way she did. Just then, Sis's phone rings. It's Gwang-soo. Yura assumes the press conference must be over and checks her phone for any messages from Sun-hyun. Sis ends her call and tells Yura they should get going. Yura asks where they're headed, and Sis replies, Incheon Park. Once they hit Incheon Park, Yura is surprised to find Minseon already there, waiting for them. Sis, with a sly grin, instructs Minseon to keep an eye on Yura before making her exit. And just like that, Yura finds herself heading off with Minseon. As they drive off, Yura can't help but ask, "Where are we headed?" Minseon grins and reveals they're going to Sun-hyun's place. Her surprise must be evident because he quickly reassures her that they won't be venturing out into the snow. As they cruise through the city, she spots billboards adorned with Sun-hyun's face, making her wonder how a public outing would even be possible now that she's his girlfriend. She doesn't crave the limelight, just the simple, everyday moments with him. Pulling up to a towering skyscraper, Minseon announces, "We're here." Yura can't help but marvel at the sight. Inside, she walks in on Sun-hyun and Chang-hyun deep in discussion. She's taken aback, not expecting to see Chang-hyun there. Recognizing her, Chang-hyun exclaims, "Yura," leaving Sun-hyun and Minseon equally surprised. She fills them in on her past encounter with Chang-hyun, prompting laughter from Minseon and a silent chuckle from Sun-hyun. Chang-hyun teases, claiming her behavior was too suspicious for a mere fan. She apologizes, then playfully scolds Sun-hyun for laughing at her. He manages an apology between fits of laughter before announcing he'll whip up something tasty for them to nibble on. This surprises Yura, who had no idea he could cook. Chang-hyun explains that Sun-hyun's interest in cooking sparked during his chef role in a drama, and he's been quite the culinary whiz since. True to his word, Sun-hyun emerges with a feast that leaves Yura speechless. To him, it's just something simple. As they tuck into the meal, Yura raves about the food, and Minseon seconds her compliment. They chat and laugh over dinner, creating a warm, enjoyable atmosphere. Yura takes a sip of wine, but before she can finish, Sun-hyun gently takes the glass away, insisting she's had enough. Despite her protests that she's not drunk, he guides her to his bedroom, telling her to rest until Sis arrives. Once in the room, he seats her on the bed, encouraging her to take a break. She looks up at him, pointing out that he seems more worn out than she is. He admits he had been filming until dawn the previous day. Then, to his surprise, she suggests they rest together. He chalks it up to the alcohol talking, but she assures him she means it, leaving him pleasantly surprised. Yura and Sun-hyun lie side by side on the bed, deep in conversation. Yura playfully chides him for his habit of skipping over important details when he speaks, a quirk Minseon had warned her about. He apologizes, looking a little sheepish. His curiosity piqued, he asks what else Minseon spilled about him, but Yura blushes and brushes it off, saying it was nothing special. Sun-hyun explains that he had invited Minseon and Chang-hyun over, worried that it might be awkward with just the two of them. But now, alone in his room, he wants to know if she's comfortable. She reassures him, saying she's enjoying herself. His friends are fun, she adds, and his cooking is nothing short of fantastic. As they chat, she finds herself captivated by him, his eyes, his breath, his warmth, all of it feels like it's enveloping her heart. And then, Suk-hyun finally does what we've all been waiting for. He leans in and kisses softly. She gently breaks the kiss, reminding him that they aren't exactly alone. This prompts him to smile and caress her face before settling back beside her. He remarks that it's the first time he's seen her so relaxed around him. She teases him, asking if he's never felt tense around her. Instead of answering, he tickles her, sending them both into fits of laughter. Meanwhile, Sis and Gwang-soo pull up to Sun-hyun's apartment building. Sis is taken aback by the sheer size of it and can't help but ask if the entire building belongs to his company. When Gwang-soo confirms it, she's even more impressed, realizing her boyfriend co-manages such a massive agency. Gwang-soo explains that he and Sun-hyun are co-representatives, which Sis thinks is even cooler, having Sun-hyun's name attached to the business adds credibility. She asks how long he's been planning this, to which he replies it's been a while. He tells her that many celebrities have either signed or are in talks with their company, MNK Entertainment. He mentions that he's been eyeing Yura's talent and can't fathom why she hasn't signed with an agency yet. He extends an offer for both Yura and Sis to join his company. Sis is quick to agree but shares her concern about Yura's past experience with entertainment companies. She recounts a time when they were tricked into a shady contract signing at a bar. Yura had seen through the scam and walked away, but the experience left a bad impression on her. Gwang-soo reassures Sis, promising a transparent and respectful collaboration, and reasons that it's all the more reason for Yura to work with them. Fast forward 10 days, Jong-woo strides into Incheon Airport, fresh from Busan. His arrival sparks a frenzy as fans and paparazzi alike scramble to snap his picture. Buzzing through the crowd, whispers of "that's the guy who married Ki Sun-moon's daughter," Miran, can be heard. He greets the crowd with a wave and a smile, but once he's safe in his car, he vents about the hassle of navigating an airport as a celebrity. His manager, from behind the wheel, checks if he's worn out. Jong-woo admits he's beat, grumbling about being whisked off to Seoul without a breather. The manager reminds him that Miran has been missing him quite a bit, but Jong-woo counters, questioning why Miran insists on scheduling appointments when they're supposed to meet. He lets out a sigh, wondering aloud if she's simply using him to show off to her friends. Inwardly, the manager muses that Jong-woo knew what he was signing up for when he married into the family. He bites back the comment, instead mulling over how Jong-woo plans to dodge this meetup with Miran. Suddenly, Jong-woo has a brainwave. He asks his manager about a drama offer he'd recently turned down. On hearing that the filming schedule didn't align, he instructs the manager to call back and accept the role. He figures an urgent meeting with the drama production team would get him off the hook with Miran. As the manager dials, Jong-woo mentally prepares himself for the call from Miran, making sure their stories align. The manager reveals the drama title is A Noble Dining Table. Meanwhile, Yura is engrossed in audition scripts for the same drama while Sis drives them to a supermarket far from home. Her phone rings, it's Sun-hyun. She tells him about her supermarket run and the upcoming audition. It's been 10 days since they started dating, and with Sun-hyun filming in Busan, their relationship feels like a long-distance one. But daily calls have become their routine. At the supermarket, Sis probes her about the call. Yura fills her in, unaware that Sis has been holding back on sharing Gwang-soo's proposal. She doesn't want to add more stress to Yura's plate before the auditions. Just then, Gwang-soo calls. Sis excuses herself, leaving Yura to explore the electronics section. The TV screens around her flash images of Sun-hyun, making her smile at the thought of him being her boyfriend. A voice from behind remarks that Sun-hyun is even more handsome in person. Turning around, she finds a tall man hidden behind a mask and cap. He pulls down his mask, revealing himself as Sun-hyun, leaving Yura stunned. Yura is momentarily frozen in shock as she looks at Sun-hyun. He breaks the silence, calling her name and asking if she's surprised. She blinks back at him, dumbfounded, stammering out a question about how he ended up there. He's here to check on the signboard of his entertainment company. Gwang-soo had asked him to keep hush about their plans to sign Yura, as Sis wanted to break the news to her first. Since he can tell her the real reason he's here, Sun-hyun just says that he has some urgent work in Seoul. Yura raises an eyebrow at this, wondering aloud if this was another surprise visit coordinated with Sis, like the cafe incident. He assures her that Sis is in the dark this time. He hadn't said anything because he needs to head back to Busan right after his work in Seoul. Plus, he was just around the corner from the supermarket. Yura suggests they leave the supermarket as soon as possible to avoid drawing attention, but he dismisses her concern, pointing to his covered face. She counters that his presence alone is enough to stand out. As she scans the crowd nervously, he teases her about not seeming too thrilled to see him after such a long time. Before she can retort, he takes charge of her shopping cart, leaving her surprised at the heap of items she has to buy. As they navigate the aisles, he advises her to act natural. Standing out would invite unwanted attention. His excitement is palpable as he picks up a bag of bell peppers, mistakenly referring to them as paprika chilies. She corrects him, teasing him about his lack of knowledge, despite being a good cook. He chuckles, revealing that he usually has ingredients delivered to his home. This is actually his first time grocery shopping, and he seems as thrilled as a kid in a candy store. They continue their grocery run, their actions mirroring a newlywed couple. But when she turns to show him something, he's nowhere to be found. She spots him at a meat stand, chomping down on a sample with his face uncovered. Panic sets in as she notices a woman starting to recognize him. As she rushes to pull him away, the woman asks if he's an actor. Yura freezes, but Sun-hyun smiles and plays it off, saying he often gets mistaken for one. She quizzes him about whether he's better at acting or lying, to which he cheekily replies, both. As he walks away, she wonders how she'll ever keep up with him. Meanwhile, Jong-woo arrives at the drama producer's office. The producer is surprised to see him, expecting only his manager to pick up the script. She mentions an ongoing audition for the female lead role, throwing a wrench in Jong-woo's plans. He recovers quickly though, and requests to be part of the audition panel to get a feel for his potential co-star. The producer readily agrees, thanking him for his interest. Later, in the supermarket's underground parking lot, Sun-hyun lends a hand with loading the shopping bags into Sis's car. He checks with Yura to see if there's anything else she needs. She laughingly responds that her fridge is already bursting at the seams and playfully questions how he can afford all the groceries. He grins, holding up a small box of chocolate milk, reminding her that she picked it for him. She retorts that she could buy hundreds of those with the amount they spent, to which he replies he prefers the one she got him over hundreds of others. His words bring a warm smile to her face. Just then, Sis rolls up, greeting Sun-hyun and informing him that Gwang-soo is waiting. As he bids Yura goodbye, he encourages her not to be nervous about her audition. Watching him leave, she feels a surge of gratitude. His surprise visit has been the perfect boost before her audition. She's practiced the character to her satisfaction and is confident about pulling it off. A few hours later, Yura is summoned for her audition. She stands tall, feeling positive about her performance. She steps into the room, introducing herself and the role she's auditioning for with a confident smile. But her smile fades when she spots Jong-woo among the producers. One of the producers, noticing her reaction, asks if she's a fan of Jong-woo. He quickly jumps in, sharing that they've worked together recently and applauding her acting skills. His praises heighten the producer's expectations of Yura's performance. However, Yura is less than thrilled. The thought of Jong-woo evaluating her acting makes her queasy. Pushing aside her nerves, she begins her audition at the producer's cue. Meanwhile, Sis nervously waits outside the room, wondering why Yura is taking longer than expected. When Yura finally emerges, Sis probes her about the delay. Yura reveals she auditioned for 2 additional roles, though she doesn't seem confident about their reception. Sis teases that she looks like she bombed the audition. Yura complains about a certain disgusting piece of garbage being present at the audition. It takes Sis a moment to catch on, but when she does, she's outraged to learn that Yura is referring to Jong-woo. Yura adds that he seemed to be playing judge, and she suspects he's the lead character. This infuriates Sis even more. Suddenly, Yura's attention is drawn by Jong-woo's manager, whom she recognizes as Myung-ho, calling out to her. She turns around to face him. Myung-ho greets Yura and Sis with a warm smile, but it's clear that Sis isn't thrilled to see him. He quickly apologizes about Jong-woo's behavior, but Sis cuts him off, making it clear she's not interested in hearing any apologies on Jong-woo's behalf. Myung-ho then mentions that Jong-woo wants a word with Yura, a comment that sets Sis off. She gives Myung-ho a piece of her mind, but to her surprise, Yura calmly asks where Jong-woo is. Myung-ho points towards the underground parking lot. Yura assures Sis that she'll handle it, and if Jongwoo crosses a line, she won't hesitate to cut him off. With that, she heads towards the parking lot, leaving Sis and Myung-ho behind. Sis warns Myung-ho not to make excuses for Jongwoo. She vents her frustration, questioning why he didn't warn her about Jongwoo's true character earlier, even going so far as to call him the worst guy. Myung-ho admits he knew Jongwoo's nature but clarifies that it was the reason he never pursued Sis. He didn't want to risk their friendship over a relationship doomed from the start. He insists that Jongwoo seemed genuinely sincere around Yura, but Sis remains unconvinced. Meanwhile, Yura finds Jongwoo in his car. He admits he would have been disappointed if she hadn't shown up, expressing gratitude for her presence. Yura cuts to the chase, asking him why he called. Jongwoo reveals that she auditioned for the role of Min Jong, who has a crush on his character in the drama. He mentions that the producers seemed pretty impressed with her audition, suggesting she might want to tone down a bit before they start filming together. Yura questions if he called her because he's still not over her, which triggers Jongwoo. He snaps at her, warning her that his opinion could influence whether she gets the role or not. Yura isn't fazed, telling him she won't stoop to dirty tricks to secure a role, unlike him. This earns a laugh from Jongwoo, who tells her to get off her high horse and face reality. He berates her, calling her looks average and her talent mediocre and saying that without money, she's essentially useless in this industry. He adds that her 7 years of acting experience are a waste and that to survive in this industry, one needs to rub shoulders with those who have money. Yura admits that she may not have money, but she's not so morally bankrupt as to stoop to his level. She asserts that she'd rather die than live a life like his, calling him a lowlife. The insult echoes in Jongwoo's mind, stirring up memories of his troubled past. In a sudden fit of anger, he slaps her, stunning himself as much as her. She asks if he's satisfied now, thanking him for giving her the perfect reason to do what she does next. And then, in an unexpected move, slaps him back. She then swings open the car door, telling him she never wants to see his face again. As she steps out, Sis rushes over, immediately noticing the red mark on Yura's face. Yura brushes it off, but Sis isn't convinced, suspecting Jongwoo's hand in this. Before she can confront him, Yura holds her back, insisting they leave right away. Back in the car, Jongwoo stares at his shaking hand, the one he'd used to slap Yura. Childhood memories flood back, reminding him of his father, a man who he'd always despised for his abusive behavior. He'd sworn never to become that kind of man, and yet, here he was. Once they're home, an angry Sis fusses over Yura, preparing an ice pack for her cheek while cursing Jongwoo. Yura confesses that she hit him back, but Sis argues it's not the same, a man's strength is different. As Sis applies the ice pack to Yura's face, she breaks down, wishing she had called the police. Yura comforts her, asking why she's crying. Sis laments the unfairness of it all, frustrated that Yura, a talented actress, is stuck playing minor roles. She blames herself for not being able to support Yura properly, for not helping her shine like the gem she is. Yura reassures Sis that she's a major source of motivation for her. Sis then suggests they join a talent agency. Initially, Yura thinks Sis is just venting, but when Sis insists she's serious, Yura considers it. She's always been asked about her agency at auditions, but she's preferred to remain independent, wanting to be judged on her merit, not her connections. But as Sis holds her hand, promising to find a trustworthy and top-notch agency this time, Yura can't help but recall the last time she was close to signing with an agency. Sis assures her that this time will be different, they'll do it right. And with that, they decide to make it official. The next day, Yura and Sis are all dolled up and ready to sign on the dotted line of a shiny new agency contract. As they head out, Yura can't help but ask Sis if her cheek still looks swollen from yesterday's mishap. Sis assures her she looks as gorgeous as ever. As they drive, Yura probes Sis about a casting offer she mentioned earlier. When Sis confirms it's legit, Yura bombards her with questions. Clearly, she has trust issues when it comes to the glitzy world of showbiz. They pull up to M&K Entertainment, a place that screams big league. Yura's eyes wander, taking in the swanky surroundings. She admits to Sis that she's never heard of such a top-tier agency before. When Sis reveals it's a new venture, Yura can't help but question its credibility. Sis swears by their trustworthiness, which only piques Yura's curiosity about who the representative is. Once inside, they head to an office. A familiar voice beckons them inside, leaving Yura feeling a little déjà vu. As they step in, her jaw drops. It's Sun Hyun, the representative. the K in MNK, as in Kang Sun-hyun. Just as she's processing this, Gwang-soo pops out of nowhere, scaring the living daylights out of her. Turns out he's the Moon Gwang-soo. Yura barely recognized him, what with his snazzy new look and all. While the trio dives into contract details, Yura's mind races. She remembers Sun-hyun's recent free agency stint and can't believe she's the last to know about his big move. She blows up, demanding why they kept her in the dark about owning an entertainment company. After taking a few deep breaths, she turns to Sis, feeling betrayed. Sis swears she just found out herself. Sung-hyun chimes in, saying he kept it hush-hush to avoid stirring up drama with his former agency. He then hands her the contract, inviting her to take a look. As Yura scans the document, Jongwoo's words about making deals with moneyed people echo in her mind. She knows there's a world of difference between his underhanded tactics and signing a legit contract, but she can't shake off the hesitation. She confronts Sun-hyun, questioning if she's getting this opportunity because they're dating. He flat out denies it, saying he's offering her the contract because she's a talent worth investing in. Yura confesses that she's worried about him getting hurt by helping her, which catches everyone off guard. Sun-hyun reassures her, guessing that she believes he's doing this because they're together. With a subtle nod from Gwang-soo, Sis takes the cue to vacate the room, granting Yura and Sun-hyun some much-needed privacy. The moment the door closes behind them, a heavy silence descends, punctuated only by the occasional shuffling of papers. Finally, Sun-hyun breaks the quiet, gently assuring Yura that he saw her potential as an actress before any romantic feelings surfaced. He reminds her that he recognized her talent before he even considered her as anything more than a promising newcomer. Yura counters with her worries about becoming too reliant on him, confessing that she feels overwhelmed by the opportunities presented to her, like working with Min-seong, solely because of his influence. Sung-hyun starts to interject, but thinks better of it, letting her voice her concerns. He then reassures her that MNK needs her, Hwang Yura the actress, just as much as he does as a boyfriend. He emphasizes that her joining the company would be a win-win situation, and losing someone as talented as her would certainly be a blow to the agency. But he doesn't pressure her, instead asking her to mull over her decision. On their drive back, Yura expresses her guilt to Sis about holding her future in her hands. Sis downplays the situation, admitting she was slightly taken aback when Yura questioned Sun-hyun's motives. She optimistically claims she'll make a great manager one day and insists that Yura has nothing to apologize for. She reassures Yura that if things don't work out at MNK, they can always go back to their old ways. Sis drops Yura off at a park at her request, leaving her to ponder her options. Alone in the tranquil park, Yura wrestles with her thoughts. Opportunities like this are rare, and she knows it. She contemplates over her fears of letting Sis down and acknowledges that Sung-hyun is not one to let personal feelings cloud his professional judgment. Mid-thought, she receives a text from Sis with a link to the music video she filmed with Min-seong. She hits play, her heart pounding as she watches herself in the video. The melody she found catchy on set now sounds even more enchanting. She scrolls through the comments, pleasantly surprised by the positive feedback on her acting skills. One comment, in particular, brings tears to her eyes. Meanwhile, Sun-hyun watches the same video in his office, a proud smile playing on his lips. He makes a silent promise to himself, he'll make sure everyone sees Yura for the star that she is. The next day, Yura and Sis head back to MNK where Yura officially signs a 5-year contract. This marks a significant milestone for her. It's the first time in her 7-year acting career that she's inked an exclusive deal with an agency. She sees it as a new beginning, a chance to really make her mark. Sure, her boyfriend is part of the agency, but she's determined to stand on her own 2 feet. Soon after, Sis says her goodbyes. She's off for a mini vacation in her hometown. She considers it her last break before Yura becomes a big star and her managerial duties kick into high gear. In the days following her signing, Yura quickly realizes the clout that comes with a top-tier agency. Suddenly, her acting profile that used to languish in the shadows is thrust into the spotlight. Curiosity about the new actress sets the internet abuzz. She revels in the sudden attention, prepping herself for the journey ahead. No more worrying about renting practice rooms or paying for lessons, MNK has it all covered. She walks into MNK one morning, coffee in hand for the receptionist. As she heads into the practice room, a guy stops her, asking if she's the girl from the music video. It's Lee Kang, an actor who skyrocketed to fame just 2 years after his debut. He's a heartthrob, especially among older women. Yura wonders what he's doing there. He introduces himself, calling her senior, which takes Yura by surprise. Despite being in the industry for 7 years, she's not used to being referred to as a senior. She tells him she knows who he is, which makes him smile. He admits that he became a fan after watching her music video and had read about her joining MNK. He never imagined they'd meet like this. As he's called away, he bows and rushes off. Yura overhears him telling his brother what a smart move it was to join the agency. Gwang-soo later reveals to Yura that Lee Khan has also signed with MNK. She's surprised but pleased. After all, he treated her like a superstar. She must be one, Gwang-soo teases. Gwang-soo, who used to manage Sun Hyun, has now taken on a full-time role at the agency. MNK is quickly becoming a melting pot of talent, including Chang Hyun and Jin Ah. When Yura first heard about Jin Ah joining MNK, she was taken aback. After all, Sun Hyun almost went on a blind date with her once. But she knows Sun Hyun didn't know who his potential date was. As they chat, Gwang-soo asks Yura if she's free later. When she says yes, he suggests she crash Sun Hyun's fan meeting. After all, he'll be heading back to Busan right after. Gwang-soo suggests they borrow Chang Hyun's wheels since he's off duty, promising to loop in the manager who's in the know about her and Sun Hyun. As he dials, he casually mentions that it's a special day and she might want to bring a gift for Sun Hyun. Yura's left puzzled, wondering what the special occasion could be. She assumes it must be related to the fan meeting. After all, it's been ages since Sun Hyun had one on home turf. Fast forward a bit, and Yura's being chauffeured by manager Lee to the venue of Sun Hyun's fan meet. Apologizing for taking up his time, Lee brushes it off, claiming he was headed to the broadcasting station anyway. Once they arrive, Yura is blown away by the throng of fans eagerly waiting outside. What really catches her eye though are the posters plastered all around with a happy birthday message for Sun Hyun. Surprised, she asks Lee about it, who confirms it indeed is Sun Hyun's birthday. No wonder Gwang-soo called it a special day. She felt a twinge of guilt. She'd spoken to Sun Hyun that very morning, and he hadn't mentioned a thing about his birthday. Yura quickly asks manager Lee about nearby shopping centers to grab a last-minute gift. He laughs, pointing out that Sun Hyun practically has everything under the sun. He then hands over a bag from Gwang-soo, filled with a coat and some disguise gear. With her staff jacket, cap, and mask, Yura slips into the bustling building unnoticed. She marvels at the laser-focused staff, confident they're too engrossed in their work to pay her any mind. All she needs now is the manager Lee said would guide her. Suddenly, someone calls her name from behind, making her jump. After exchanging greetings, he escorts her to Sun Hyun's dressing room, urging her to make it quick. As she approaches the room, she looks around nervously, ensuring no one spots her. Just as she's about to enter, a girl exits the room, telling Sun Hyun she's heading to the restroom. The girl leaves without noticing Yura, who steps into the empty room, heart pounding. Yura wonders where Sun Hyun could be when she hears some noises from the fitting room. As she contemplates her next move, she hears a knock on the door. Cody, the girl from earlier, walks in, calling out for Sun Hyun, asking if he's done changing. Inside the fitting room, a startled Sun Hyun is silenced by Yura covering his mouth. He doesn't recognize her at first due to her mask, but as she removes it, his eyes widen in surprise. Cody's voice echoes through the room, calling for Sun Hyun. When he doesn't respond, she assumes he might be in the bathroom and starts heading that way. But the scuffling sounds from the fitting room make her pause. She calls out again, and this time, Sun Hyun quickly apologizes, promising to be out soon. Inside the fitting room, Sun Hyun is trying his best to stifle a laugh, while Yura is in full-on panic mode, worried about being discovered. Sun Hyun whispers, asking her what has gotten her so flustered. Instead of answering, Yura swiftly types something on her phone and shows it to him. It reads, "I came to surprise you, but you surprised me first. Why didn't you tell me it's your birthday?" Reading this, Sun Hyun chuckles softly, typing back that it's amusing she's the only one who didn't know about her boyfriend's birthday. He then types another message, asking if she's mad at him and confessing that this situation makes the relationship feel even more real to him. Yura rolls her eyes at this, finding his amusement annoying. As she starts to respond, she spots his bare chest and quickly turns away, blushing. She whispers an apology and tells him to get dressed, but instead, he wraps his arms around her. She protests, warning him they might get caught, but he just leans in closer, aiming for a kiss. Just as their lips are about to meet, Cody's voice interrupts them again, urging Sun-hyun to hurry up. He quickly gets dressed, assuring her he'll be right out, leaving Yura flushed and flustered. Once he's dressed, he tells Yura to stay hidden until he leaves. He exits the fitting room, apologizing to Cody for the delay and settling down in front of the mirror for a quick hair fix. Meanwhile, Yura is left alone in the fitting room, her heart pounding so hard she worries it might burst. She tries to calm herself down, surprised by the depth of Sun-hyun's feelings for her, given his busy schedule. She chides herself for not knowing his birthday and still addressing him as senior. Then, an idea strikes her. Just as Cody is finishing up with his hair, Sun-hyun gets a text from Yura that reads, "I know what I'm giving you for your birthday." Intrigued, he quickly asks what it is. Her reply has him jumping out of his chair, even as Cody announces she's done. Excusing himself, he tells Cody he left something in the fitting room and will catch up with her outside. Once inside the fitting room, he confesses to Yura that her message had him on edge, then leans in for a kiss. His phone screen lights up with Yura's simple yet heartfelt text, "Happy birthday." Just a few days later, Yura and Sis are strolling out of a grocery store, taking in the breathtaking beauty of cherry blossoms in full bloom. A couple breezes past them, their hands entwined, and Yura can't help but wonder if she'd ever have the chance to enjoy such simple pleasures with Sun-hyun. She glances at a nearby banner showcasing his face and lets out a soft sigh. For them, even the most ordinary activities seem like an unattainable luxury. She fondly refers to him as her extraordinary lover. Since the fan meeting, Sun-hyun has been juggling overseas commitments while simultaneously filming. MNK, along with J-Film, is gearing up for their joint drama venture, Line. With Sun-hyun's packed schedule, catching up with him is proving to be quite a challenge. Line is a major project that MNK has thrown its full weight behind, featuring a star-studded cast from the agency. Yura, too, has received the script, and despite the long hours spent memorizing lines, she's confident it's going to be a massive hit. As they drive home, Sis asks if Sun-hyun is back in Seoul. Yura informs her that he's attending the press conference for Line. They chat about the high expectations for the drama, including speculation about it hitting a 50% rating. Yura admits she's just thrilled to be part of it, even if her role is a minor one. On her next visit to MNK, Yura gets some unexpected news from Sun-hyun and Gwang-soo. She's been chosen for the role of Yoon, a nearly lead part, after the original actress had to drop out due to Hollywood commitments. This revelation leaves Yura stunned. Sis queries about the actor playing Yoon's partner, Jong-soo, and Gwang-soo reveals it's Kong-lee. Sis teases Yura for not sharing that she'd met Kong-lee. Yura recounts their brief encounter and admits she's relieved that her co-star is someone as approachable as Kong-lee. She sees the role of Yoon as a golden opportunity, one that might even eclipse the main character. Later, when she's alone with Sun-hyun, Yura can't contain her excitement about being in the same movie as him, especially since her character is his on-screen sister. He mentions a kissing scene, but Yura quickly points out that her character doesn't have such a scene. She playfully suggests he should request the writers to add one. When she asks about his character's love interest, he reveals it's Jin-ah, which leaves Yura somewhat taken aback. As they chat, Yura notices some bruises on Sun-hyun's hand. He brushes it off, attributing it to a filming mishap in Busan. But Yura isn't convinced. She knows the line script by heart, and there's no scene that could have resulted in such injuries. As Sun-hyun hastily excuses himself for the upcoming script reading, Yura can't shake off the feeling that something isn't adding up. This story is just getting to its climax. Do you think Yura and Sun-hyun's relationship can stand the test? Find out in part 2. Comment Yura below if you want to see it. Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, ciao!